Welcome to episode 20 of the Tough Draw Talks podcast. I'm your host, Brad Hughes. Today, we are coming to you from our office in the historic Fort Worth Stockyards. Appreciate you being along for the ride. Today's episode is sponsored by Cavender's. Cavender's is proud to have served the Western community for over 50 years. Shop authentic Western wear at cavenders.com or at a local store near you. I'm super excited about today's podcast. We've been trying to connect the last couple of months, well, actually since the start of summer, right before Cheyenne, and we're finally sitting down to discuss all things sports, particularly PBR and PBR teams, with none other than PBR insider and senior writer, Justin Felisko. Justin, how's it going, man?
This is awesome, Brad. I'm super excited. We finally found the time to sit down. It took us a little bit, but it's going to be fun.
Man, I know. And it's funny because we tried to get together right before Cheyenne and stuff like that, but at the same time, now we're coming up right on the PBR Teams Championship. So I feel like we got a lot to talk about. So I'm super excited to just dive in. Don't know if you've listened to the podcast much, but we like to kick things off with a couple rapid fire questions just to break the ice and get things going. So, all right, what's your favorite food?
Favorite food? Tacos.
Tacos. So Mexican food in general or just tacos?
Just tacos, man.
Tacos.
When I was like in, maybe first grade, I told a bunch of my family that tacos were my best friend. So that just shows right there. It's stuck, man. So, Taco Tuesday is a big thing at home.
There you go. Taco Tuesday, Taco Thursday, Taco every day.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? So congrats, though, because you recently got married, correct?
Did.
All right.
Made it so far.
There you go. You survived. How many months?
Oof, now we're at almost 4.
Oh, I'm putting you on the spot.
Yeah, I did math, yeah. Almost 4 now.
There you go. All right, so this next question, as a newlywed, what's one thing that has been a pleasant surprise about married life that you didn't know of or think of before?
Pleasant surprise about being married. I would say how, and this is going to sound wrong, but how easy it is. And it's only been a couple months.
Uh-oh.
But the reason why I say easy is that some people are like, oh, you got married. It must be so different. It's got to be like, no. As long as you marry the right person in your life, it's going to feel just as special as it was before. There's no difference.
Agreed.
Now, of course, there's some arguments about, you left the dishwasher open or why are the dirty plates in the sink and not the dishwasher, all those things that I get yelled at. But I'll tell you what, being married is a blessing. It's the greatest day of my life. And that, to me, that's the most best thing you can do in life.
Heck yeah. This January will be 13 years for me.
Good stuff, man.
I started young.
That's funny, though. Like, now that I'm married, I've learned of so many more people that have been married for 13, 15, 20 years. When you're single or dating, everyone's like, oh, everyone's divorced and no one has long marriage anymore. And now it's like I'm married. Just yesterday, I met someone, they're celebrating their 25th anniversary. Wow. So that's awesome.
No, we got married at 22 and 18. So, so we started young.
Good stuff.
Man, well, congrats on that. All right, so being a filmmaker, storyteller, stuff like that, I got to know, what's your favorite movie?
Favorite movie? Oh, man, that just put me on the spot. Favorite movie?
What's your favorite genre of movie?
I'm definitely a sports docs. Okay. I'm a big ESPN 30 for 30 guy. Yeah. But I will say probably my favorite movie would probably be Invincible.
Okay.
And I despise the Eagles. I'm a Vikings fan in football, but I love that movie. I thought that was the story. Everything about that movie was awesome. So probably Invincible.
Very cool. I'm a Friday Night Lights guy myself.
Yeah, that's a great one too.
But I'm from Texas, so
yeah, I played high school football, so I have a soft spot for Friday Night Lights. The TV series was awesome too.
Oh yeah, they're both awesome. But my favorite scene, like from a directing standpoint, somebody ever asked me like, "What's your favorite scene?" Favorite scene is when Lucas Black is sitting there on the bed with the toy car, and his coach is basically saying, "Do you want to grow up? Do you want to get out of here?" And it's just like the symbolism in that moment. Like, it's awesome. It's a cool scene. You need to go back and watch it. And Invincible, but don't cheer for the Eagles. Because I'm a Cowboys fan and he's a Vikings fan.
Yeah.
All right. If you were not a PBR insider, what would you be doing?
Man, that's a great question. Because I wasn't supposed to be the PBR insider for almost 10 years. That was never the plan. I guess I'd probably be a sports writer for I don't know, a newspaper, or, I mean, I came from the college hockey background for a bit. I don't know. It's a great question because PBR has been all I've known from my professional career. So I don't know. I'd probably still be a writer, a storyteller, hopefully.
So sports junkie.
Yeah, definitely a sports junkie. That's my deal. But yeah, that's a really good question. What would I be doing if I wasn't the PBR insider? Yeah, I don't know. Probably some kind of storytelling in sports.
Very cool. So you can't use this, but I'm going to tell you, I do my recon when I get guests, and I talk to Matt West. And Matt actually told me that as far as anyone that he's ever met that has a passion and a heart for this community, especially to not have like grown up in it or rodeoed or whatever, he was like, there's nobody that cares more and has a heart for it than Justin. So he paid you that compliment. Oof. But at the same time, he also told me to make sure and tell you, I have seen you on TV, and maybe someday you might be as good as Matt on TV.
Hey, well, you know, there's...
Matt, you can Venmo or Zelle me for that. But with that being said, what's the best compliment you've ever received?
Ooh, wow. Best compliment I've ever received. That's a really good question. Ever. Well, I mean, it's kind of goes back to being a newlywed. But when my father-in-law said that from the moment we met Justin, we knew he was just one of the family, and that meant a lot to me because when I was younger, my dad and I had a good relationship, but not great. He had some demons in his past. But I always kind of thought that whenever I married into a family, I was hopeful to find, you know, a family with that really cool father-in-law, and I'm blessed to have an awesome father-in-law, an awesome stepfather-in-law. I married into a really great family, so to hear that on the wedding night, that was important to me to kind of get that acceptance. Not that I didn't know it, but to me, I think it was just kind of like that full circle of life, kind of where like you always feel like you're part of the family, but you're not sure.
Yeah.
So that was pretty cool.
That is cool.
Yeah, I'd go with that right now, probably.
Very cool. Very cool. So before we dive in too deep to the PBR, you brought up your Vikings fan, you know, your background. Man, Dalvin Cook's got to pick it up for my fantasy team. Now, talk to me a little bit about just your sports fandom in general.
Sure.
Like, you know, obviously the Vikings, are you know, from Minnesota, I'm guessing?
No.
Or how did you become a Vikings fan?
I'm all over the map. Grew up in Connecticut. The sports fandom started like many kids that are now adults in their 20s and 30s. I was playing Madden on my Nintendo.
There you go.
And in Connecticut, we don't have a pro team.
Yeah.
So you're kind of, as a kid, you could be a New York fan, you could be a Patriots fan, which, man, if I would have chose the Patriots, I'd be a much happier sports fan. My mom says I chose Minnesota because I like Barney as a kid, and she thought the purple thing was how.
There's a connection.
That must be it, right? No. I just loved watching Randy Moss as a kid, Chris Carter, Randall Cunningham, the Dante Culpepper with the roll, like all that fun stuff. But really, it just started with I was always part of us playing video games as a kid. And then I read a lot. I read the newspaper all the time. It was always a sports section. I was a big baseball fan growing up. Loved Ken Griffey Jr.
Oh, very cool.
In basketball, I was a Pacers fan because I was a Reggie Miller fan. Like the Utah Jazz for a bit. I tried to do the whole Karl Malone fadeaway in the backyard. Wasn't good at that.
Didn't work.
No.
You're not quite built like Karl Malone.
Yeah. Well, I played high school football, and you probably won't believe me, but I was 5'7", 200, offensive lineman, still small. Huh. Definitely not playing football in Texas at that size.
Yeah.
But clearly a 5'7", short and stocky Justin wasn't going to go pro. So my dreams were crushed, and the sports writing nerd, I guess, was the path I went on instead. So, but yeah, and then now later in life, I'm still a huge Viking fan. I love hockey. Hockey's definitely, that was the one sport in Connecticut where we had a minor league team right there in Bridgeport, Connecticut. Yeah. So I'm a big Islanders fan. And really those two are my main two. Those are my passions. I think sports, it's an escape for everyone. That is why you watch it. It's why you invest time in it. It's the emotion. Like, I mean, I'm a big believer wins and losses matter, but it's that journey of getting to the win, getting to the loss. That's that emotion that helps you escape reality, even if sports is real. But I think everyone wants that escape. That's what a hobby is. That's why you dance if you're a dancer. That's why you draw if you're an artist. Why you paint if you're a painter.
Yeah.
And for me, my escape from reality is sports.
Yeah. No, man, that resonates a lot with me. I mean, one of the biggest things I remember, and I might date myself here, but just remembering George W. Bush throwing out the pitch at the Yankees game
Yeah.
right after 9/11. Like, I remember how big that was,
Huge.
right? And then in 2020, how big of a deal it was that it was cool to have sports back. It was so different without fans. And I know, like, you know, the PBR was one of the first back, or was the first back. They were the last to shut down and the first to come back of all pro sports. So, you know, sports, that really resonates because sports has been a huge part of my life. It's actually how me and my dad communicate a lot through things, is through sports, because, you know, we don't really have a great relationship outside of that. And it's, you know, it's been great. And I bonded with my son over sports. Like, he plays basketball now, awesome. And I coach. And, but anyway, no, that's awesome. I mean, so all the interest in hockey, being from Connecticut, being from, you know, kind of, you know, all over the place. How did you end up with the PBR? Like, how did you end up with bull riding or rodeo?
It's the golden question. Yeah. So it's funny. I went to Springfield College in Massachusetts, majored in sports journalism, communication, doubled in English. And I was going to wear a top hat, smoke cigars, use a typewriter, and cover the Cincinnati Reds. That was when I showed up there, that was the plan. And, you know, did my internships, was covering a bunch of sports in college, all kinds of cool stuff. And I got to about that time where I was going to graduate in spring of 2012 and had no job. And I was a guy that, like, from day one, interned, covered everything. Like, I was the editor-in-chief of the school paper. I was doing radio. I was doing some TV stuff. Like, I was all in. And I had 0 offers. Denial. And I'm like, well, what am I going to do?
Yeah.
So flashback to about a year before that, the same thing happened. I was a junior in college, and I thought I was going to intern with the New York Times, the Miami Herald, LA Times, Minneapolis. Like, I was going to go somewhere and intern that summer. Struck out. So I was ticked off. I was sitting there in Springfield, Massachusetts, just working a college job, still, like, writing for local stuff, but I didn't get that big internship then.
Yeah.
And I had sent an email to the USA Hockey Magazine editor because they had, like, an internship program, and I missed the deadline. I was like, is this a year-long thing?
Yeah.
He said, yeah, it's a year-long thing. So back to 2012 and graduating college, I'm like, crap, I wonder if that internship is still a thing because I have nothing.
Yeah.
So I emailed him. It happened to be that his intern had just quit. He had an opening. He's like, hey, you know, do you want to move to Colorado Springs for, you know, 6 months next week?
Yeah.
I was like, next week? Yeah, I just got to graduate, and then I'll pack up my car and go. So I packed up my car, drove west, emptied out my savings, and this wasn't like, you know, get rich quick kind of deal. It was, you know, okay money, but it gave me time to freelance, right? So I'd work for USA Hockey during the day. Then I would cover high school sports at night, and I was, you know, again, not making a living.
Yeah.
it was just, you know, an internship kind of deal.
Yeah.
So what happened was, after about 10, 11 months of being there, my boss sat me down. He's like, hey, you need to need to find a job. I was like, what? He's like, no, we love you here, but, like, we gotta get you, like, you know, benefits and, like, a real paycheck, like this, you know, you can stay, but what are we gonna do? So the PBR had this job opening for a while. It was like a copywriter, a copy editor kind of deal.
Yeah.
And I kept seeing it, and I was like, well, I mean, I could probably figure this out, but, you know. So I was like, okay, I'll apply for this job. I'll do it for 6 months to a year, and then I'll be gone.
Yeah.
Didn't think they'd call me. Called me, invited me to the PBR headquarters, and I, you know, pull in. I'm like, oh, that's a guy in a bull. Who's
Which
that?
is right down the road, right?
Yeah, it's like, 30-minute drive.
Yeah.
And I walk in, and there's, you know, Adriano, a little yellow jacket. At the time, I'm like, oh, that's a cool little statue. I wonder who that guy is. Like, no idea about bull riding. But yeah, I walked in there, sat down, interviewed with a bunch of people, including Sean Gleason, and ended up getting the job offer. And then, again, 6 months became a year became 2 became 3. Now we're at almost 10.
Yeah. And so, you know, so with you, it was just a copyright job, but you do a lot more than that.
Yeah.
Like, how has that happened? Just like a hole comes up and it's like, hey, I can fill it,
yeah,
kind of thing? Or?
Exactly. So part of the reason why I didn't think I'd stay there that long was they had Keith Ryan Cartwright. And the belief was he'd be there forever. He loved his job. He was great at it. And, there wasn't at the time this talk of, okay, we're going to have 2 beat reporters traveling.
Yeah.
There just wasn't an option. So, I'd help out with Keith. I was kind of his number 2. Mm-hmm. So when Keith decided to pursue his master's and resign from PBR to write his book, his Black Cowboys book, and he had some projects he wanted to work on, and he wanted to take a step away from the travel. Yeah. He resigned, and my boss was like, well, hey, you're the guy. I was like, what, me? I'm the Connecticut boy? I didn't wear jeans until I was in college. Now you want me to go cover bull riding? Like, what? And Keith had recommended me as well, and, so they said, hey, we think you'd be a guy that can do this. And I was like, oh, travel the U.S. for a year? Yeah, I'll do it for a year or 2, and then I'll go work for the New York Times. Like, yeah, done. Like, no problem. Yeah. And basically what's happened throughout my career there was did that for about a year or 2, and that was in 2014. Because, like, one of the first events I worked without Keith was when J.W. Harris got on Bushwhacker in Bismarck, North Dakota. And after about a year of doing that, PBR had this idea to create an OTT network. Mm-hmm. We were going to launch this whole on-camera, live event coverage. And a boss at the time sat me down. He's like, hey, I want you to become like Jay Glazer. I was like, me? I don't do TV. I don't do any of this. Like, at that point, like, again, typewriter, cigar. Yeah. That's my bread and butter. The hat. Yeah, exactly. Not a cowboy hat, just top hat. That was the plan. And I was like, you guys think I can do TV? They're like, yeah, maybe. I was like, okay, do it for a year or 2. And after about a year or 2, CBS is like, hey, we think we should have Felisko on our pre-show in Vegas, the finals. I was like, me? CBS? What? So you see the process, right? It was one of those deals where every year or so, something new came up, and someone at PBR thought, hey, let's try Felisko at it. Let's do this. Let's do that. Yeah. And that's how Matt and I connected. We started doing Ride Pass together. Yeah. And we both went on similar journeys in different ways, but we both both started off as just, he was an arena announcer and I was a copywriter, and we've both kind of grown into these different roles. And Matt's fantastic. Matt is awesome. Absolutely. He's fun to work with. And I think for me and my journey, I think Matt would say the same thing. Part of it is we both are grinders. We bust our tails. We work hard. But at the same point, we are just passionate about what we do. Yep. And when you're around passionate people, you want to put those passionate people in position to succeed. And I think that's what the PBR did with both of us.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, you coming in 2014, like you talk about, I mean, you've been around for a lot of big things, a lot of growth, a lot of, maturity. And one of the biggest things, you and I, we connected at the draft. Mm-hmm. And, that was one of those events, history was made that night. Sure. It was the first time, first deal. I mean, I think it was no secret who was going to be the first pick. But at the same time, like, for me, it was like, I want to go because I want to be there. Mm-hmm. I want to say I was there. Talk a little bit about the PBR teams and the history that was made and kind of that process, and what you feel like the teams does. Because for me, like there's a couple things that stood out that night. It was obviously Jose, and then, the big trade that happened between the Carolina Cowboys and the Texas Rattlers. And then, even some of the lesser knowns that were drafted that were not on people's radar. I know Cord and Brandon Bates did that. Like Briggs Madsen, couldn't even find video of him. Like I was looking him up on Instagram and stuff. And, and Casey Roberts, which I know he's a college rider, but like, some of these guys that maybe they were lesser known, but what that format is and where you felt like as far as milestone that was for the PBR overall.
I think just holistically, big picture wise, for PBR, for rodeo, for in general, it's always been an individual sport. And rodeo's had some team competitions before, don't get me wrong. PBR's tried a team thing back in the early 2000s. I think it was on ESPN, kind of like an exhibition kind of thing. It was like 3-on-3 maybe. We've had the World Cup, the Global Cup. Mm-hmm. But traditionally, other than a couple, the Winston Rodeo Series, I think it was called, it's individual sport, right? Mm-hmm. You root for a person or an animal, and that's kind of it. Yeah. There isn't this necessarily civic pride. It's your team. Now you have your rodeo, which is like a big deal. That is your team. But again, you can't really like go around and be like, rooting for the Houston Rodeo today, guys. Like, go get them, Houston Rodeo. Like, it's not. It's an experience. It's not a team. It's not that passion. And I think for all of sports, we all like to root for individuals. If you're a football fan, right? Like, you're a Cowboys fan, you probably root for Dak Prescott. But you're still a Cowboys fan. And there's something to being a Cowboys fan. It's an identity. It's a culture. You sharing that with your son. And I think it could be hard at times to be a Jose Vitor Lemi fan and share that individual fandom with another person. Like, you can both be fans of Jose, but it's different. I think with the teams now, it gives everyone a chance to still root for their guy, but root for a team, have favorite teams, have rivalries, have bar talk. That's one thing you don't get a lot of bar talk in PBR. The question I used to always say, the only bar talk I ever had was, who was better, JB Mooney or Silvano Alves during my time? That was the bar talk. But you wouldn't have that conversation all the time. Now, every weekend, it's, man, do you really think Carolina's that good? Is the Gamblers, are they just going to buy themselves a championship? Like, the team series creates opportunities for new conversations, and that's what sports does. That's what team sports does. And I think milestone-wise, big picture-wise, is a chance to put more money in bull riders' pockets. Now, it's not a get-rich quick kind of scheme. It's not going to be overnight, but I do think that, look, you've now got 6, potentially 8 owners putting money into the sport. That's huge. And they're going to try to help build these guys into stars. And the beauty of it all is it's still the same sport. It's still man versus beast, 8 seconds. You can still be a Jose fan. You can hate PBR teams and still watch it because it's still bull riding. It's just a different format in theory, but still, you can still be an individual fan and say, I don't like teams. I don't like this. I think the jerseys are stupid. It's not traditional. That's fair. But the sport is still the same. And that to me, that was important, that it's not like they said, okay, rides now are 5 seconds and you get a point for every second. And it's actually simpler if you think about it. In the PBR terms, Unleash the Beast, we got a point system, and round wins are worth this amount of points. You get a ride score, but the ride score doesn't count. It's complicated for the casual fan. Unless you know rodeo and know bull riding, like my friends in the East Coast, they don't understand the whole Unleash the Beast, the points, and why one scores count and others don't. But they put on CBS, they see Arizona versus Texas. It's common sense. Guy rides bull, guy gets score. Team with the high score wins, right? It's simple. So I think that's one thing, is how can we as an industry in the Western sports make our sport simple to the newcomer? And I think Teams does that. Because if you are a basketball fan, you get team sports. You understand, like,
team with the most points wins.
Exactly. And every team sport's the same at that, right? There's a team that gets points, they win. Whether it's baseball, it's runs, touchdowns in football, hockey and goals. I think that's big. I do think Teams is going to bring in new fans, but I also hope that we could encourage our core fans to embrace and understand that this is you're getting more bull riding now. You're getting more events.
No, that's interesting, because I'm actually, it's kind of one of those things in hindsight. Like I said, we wanted to get together before the season, but I'm actually glad that we're sitting down now, because we kind of have the hindsight perspective of what worked and what didn't. And, going back to making that decision that I wanted to be there at the draft and just going, right, and shooting footage and whatnot, but like just doing it. I'm big sports guy, big rodeo fan, big sports guy, like the PBR, like PRCA, like everything, right? But I was actually talking to some of my friends about this PBR Teams thing of like, this could be huge from the standpoint, like, I was very curious. Maybe you and I can nerd out on this a little bit, because we both have an innate understanding of other sports as well. But like the possibilities, I feel like, are limitless from the standpoint of like, like for example, Dalton Castle getting traded. I read the article that you put out, and it's like, he couldn't come to an agreement with the Outlaws, not to anyone's fault or anything like that. He wanted more for his family, and so now he's a Gambler, and now they're sitting number 1. Correct me if I'm wrong, but they're number 1. It was so jumbled at the top.
It was crazy, and that's like, the thing though. You see, and that's a narrative and a story that I think wasn't really unless you read the article or really went in the weeds with it. 'Cause it is an in the weeds thing.
Yeah.
And people were confused. Like, why would they trade him? Why would Kansas City do this? And actually, it was a genius move by Kansas City as well. And that may sound crazy. Like, what do you mean it's a genius move, Justin? But, and you know this in team sports, you've seen it before.
Prepare for your future.
Yeah, a star player walks away and a team gets nothing.
Yep.
Like I was an Islanders fan. I still am.
Yeah.
And when John Tavares was there, he was our face of our franchise, and he told the team, "Don't trade me at the trade deadline. I'm going to resign."
Yeah.
He then walked away in free agency, and the team got nothing.
Jalen Brunson, Dallas Mavericks.
Exactly.
Same type of deal.
So I think it was a mature conversation by both sides. And look, it sucks. I mean, if I was a Kansas City Outlaw fans and I'm a huge Castle fan, this sucks. Like, my guy's gone now. He's a gambler. Like, And I feel bad for J.W. Hart. He doesn't want to lose his best rider.
Yeah.
But at the same point, though, I think they understood. Yeah. And Dalton's like, hey, you know what? I want to be a free agent. I just want to see. He's like, he told me I could have went to free agency and they could have all offered me less money for these. They're called marketing deals. So basically a rider can agree to sign up to a 4-year deal with a team.
Okay.
And in that agreement, that locks you into that team. So he was like, look, I can go to free agency, and if there's not a good deal, maybe I stay with Kansas City. But he wanted to at least see what was out there.
Yeah.
And that was the thing that Sean Gleason really told the Bull Riders when this all came about before the draft. He's like, because all the riders were required to do at least 1 year. If they signed up, they had to do it for 1 year. They couldn't get drafted and say, the money's not worth it. I don't like this. I'm quitting. That wasn't an option. But part of the conversation was Sean told them, hey, if you guys think you're worth more money, now you can be a free agent after year 1 and just negotiate. Go up to these team owners, say, this is what I think I'm worth. Some owners may say, no, you're not. Others may say, sure, you are. Yeah. So I thought what Dalton did was pretty smart, and I'm curious to see if that happens more in the future. When we get after this year, we'll see which riders become free agents and whatnot. And again, at the end of the day, the biggest thing of this all is a chance for these guys to make more money. And I think that's going to come as this thing continues to grow and gets bigger.
So with that growth, is there a point of attrition, so to speak? So, 53-man roster in the NFL, cut days, different things like that. Teams are limited to 6 on their active roster, correct? 5 riders and 1 extra or something like that? 7
protected and then 7 protected. Up to 5 more in the practice squad, so 12 total. Yep.
Okay. So, that's 12 times 8,
Yep.
There's only so many spots, right? What happens as this thing moves forward? And I know kind of asking you to prognosticate because we haven't even finished season 1 yet, but it's like, what starts to happen to the individual side of things? That's one question I've had that I'm really curious about because, for example, if Dalton and Jose are both locked into 4-year agreements with the Gamblers, which would be really smart for the Gamblers to do to keep them locked up because that's a strong pairing, to carry a team. What happens on the individual side if Dalton wants to ride through an injury? Does the team have the ability to say, you can't do that? Or Jose, which Jose's a tough, both of them are super tough guys and they're prone to do that.
That's a great question, and I don't know the answer because they haven't revealed publicly what the details of some of these marketing agreements are.
Yeah.
I do believe some riders are going to probably decide, you know what, I don't want to risk my team money for individual. Others may say, I'm going to use the individual season as another way to make more money. We'll see after this season how it shapes up. But I am curious, though, to your point, right? What if Jose breaks an ankle during the UTB season? What is Austin? What do they think about that? I look at it as at some point, if this thing gets so big where the Gamblers are paying Jose Vitorelli so much money that he thinks that he can't risk getting hurt, then he's got to not do UTB probably. Yeah. But some of these teams, though, and that's the thing, like we don't know exactly how big this is going to get, but I think there will always be a spot for the individual season.
Oh yeah.
It's going to be the feeder, right? It's going to be the feeder where you grow your talent and they get put on teams and. But it is something that Sean Gleason's talked about. He's like I'm curious to see which riders do UTB this coming year because we don't know really per se. I do think though there's still going to be this there's a passion to be a world champion.
Yeah.
And as long as the world champion is still that Unleash the Beast season, which that's the world champion. There's gonna be guys chasing that gold buckle. There is still something special about that. Winning a team's championship is still gonna be a huge accomplishment, but there still is something about being the individual, that gold buckle. So I think that's gonna still have guys doing it.
Yeah. Absolutely. No, it's one of those things like having those comments. That's the bar talk, right?
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
The bar talk that you were talking about. It's the going back to, what commonly happens in sports versus kind of the dynamic now that's being added into bull riding.
You're spot on, man. Like if it's me just looking at it as I always say, I just want what's best for the riders more so than anything. Yeah. And I think, look, if teams get so big where our bull riders are making $20 million a year,
yeah,
great, awesome, cool. Let's shrink the season, expand it, do it, right? Like, if the bull riders can make more money on teams than they can than winning a world title, then that's a big win for the industry. That's the more money, the better for these guys. And I think, I do think Sean Gleason was thinking that way. I think he's thinking, how do we get more opportunities for the bull riders? I think teams is that. And look, we got work to do. Don't get me wrong. We have a lot of work to do as an organization, as a league. We got to figure out a lot. We're learning as we go. Like you've said before, we're talking in hindsight after the first regular season, and there's a lot to figure out. There's things I don't even know or understand yet, and I'm sure fans are confused. And look, we're all trying to figure it out, but I think there's something special there.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I've enjoyed watching it. So when we were here for Rattler Days, my wife and I actually took two of our friends that had never been to a rodeo. Mm-hmm. They'd never been to a rodeo in general, which I know, it's a bull riding only deal, but they enjoyed it. They loved it. And it's kind of like you said, it was easy for them to follow along. Me and my wife are sitting there and we're watching. We're like, that's an 86.5. We know what we're kind of looking at, and they're just, they just see the overall number and they're, they're just pumped. They're like, oh, he rode him. Yep. Oh, he didn't.
Exactly.
It's it simplifies it to a great extent. But, my thing, I think anything that can bring rodeo and Western culture to the forefront 100%. And kind of modernize it in ways to keep it relevant. I think there's a lot of positives. I think the lure of going up and down the road, like with the PRCA, a lot of, I got a lot of friends in the PRCA. Eli Vastbinder, great example. He PRCA'd for a long time and, was an older, quote unquote, rookie of the year winner back, 2021?
Yeah.
And, Boudreaux, same way, 2020. He's still young, but he started rodeoing when he was fresh-faced baby, Yeah. So it's I think it's unique that it offers such a kind of a cool opportunity in a unique format. And I'm friends with Sage, and watching Sage on the call and stuff has been really fun to see him with Matt and Kate. But overall, I think it's good for the sport. And you've covered Western culture for a long time. In your opinion, how do you see that? Yellowstone.
Yep.
Is bringing everybody to Western culture, not necessarily that it's the greatest personification of what Western culture really is, but at the same time, it's made it relevant to be a cowboy again. Talk a little bit about that from your sense of just kind of the modernization of things and bringing it forward.
Yeah, I'm a pretty good example of this, where I grew up in Connecticut. Like I said, didn't wear jeans till college because I went to Catholic school my whole life. Never rode a horse. Certainly never rode a bull. I am not a cowboy. And I say that not as a negative to the cowboy. People ask, why don't you wear a cowboy hat? And I know I could. But for me, the cowboy hat, it's a very special and prestigious thing for the cowboy culture. And I love cowboy culture. I've grown to have a lot of friends in this industry, this culture, this community, but I didn't want to come in and be someone I'm not. Mm-hmm. And I felt it would have been disrespectful just to show up, put on a cowboy hat. And look, there's nothing wrong with that. People can wear a cowboy hat. It's encouraged. We're a very welcoming community. But for me, though, I felt like it was important for me to come into the Western world and be myself, be who I am. And I'm a sports guy. That's the one thing that kind of unifies all cultures. is sports. It doesn't, sports is really that one thing where you can talk about it, and it doesn't matter, your upbringing, your wealth, everything, right? Like what you believe in can be different. But when you watch a sporting event, it's win-loss, right? Like, doesn't matter about really anything else in that moment. So for me, when I looked at the PBR, it was how do I cover the PBR as a sport and not worry about the fact that I didn't wear a cowboy hat. I don't, that's not me. I'm a sports guy. And the more I thought about it, I'm like, this is a cool sport. We as a community have to say, you know what? Yeah, we're a Western sport, but we're still a sport. It doesn't, I think sometimes we pigeon ourselves by calling it a Western sport because, yes, it's Western sports, but it's not like saying football is it's a Eastern sport or baseball is West Coast, East Coast. You know what I mean? So I feel like, again, we're an international sport. Rodeo's international.
We're global sport.
We're global, exactly, man. So I think we as a community have to want to grow it, and I think we do across the board. I think you're seeing that, and I think the interest in, the East Coast, West Coast. Why the interest in Western sports is that everyone loves a good story, and there's an appreciation for the Western way of life, rural America. Like it's a hardworking mentality. That's a rodeo athlete, a bull rider. They bust their tail. They're gritty. They got heart, compassion. Like all those qualities are qualities that people that aren't from the Western way of life want their kids to have. That's
exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
So I think the Western way of life and Western sports is actually a lot more relatable to outsiders like I once was than people realize.
Yeah, absolutely. No, you're hitting the nail on the head, and you actually created a perfect segue because the story side of it, the storytelling. So, you, in my opinion, and even with this podcast, we have the privilege of telling the stories of these Western cultures, whether it's the athletes themselves, the stories of the moments, or the history. As a sports fan, you remember all the calls, you remember the big moments, all these types of things. And I know it's a little different not being in a booth and having major national televised events, kind of like, some of the three other major sports do. But, as a storyteller, you get the privilege of writing about these historic moments and talking about it and tweeting it now, on social, because that's a thing. And talk a little bit about the positives and the big moments and what it's like to kind of be a part of those and be able to share those with an audience that's just kind of waiting on the edge of their seat for it.
Yeah. The really, the fun thing for me is that with the PBR getting ready to celebrate its 30th anniversary, in ways me and myself, this is my 10th season, 9th year at PBR. Okay. That's 30% of the league's history I've documented. And I have to pinch myself. That's a lot. To say that I covered 30% of the PBR's history, right? I covered JB winning his second title, Silvano winning his third, Jess Lockwood, Jose Viterlin. I've covered superstars. Yep. I saw Cooper Davis show up chubby, get called fat, win the World Finals. I think he was already engaged, but he got married, has a kid, wins a world title, becomes Captain America. I've seen, it's been fun seeing the journey of these athletes and their lives and in the sport and growing. That's to me, that's an honor to document the rise, and you hate to say the fall of an athlete, but I covered JB at his best and JB at his worst. I've covered Jess Lockwood at his best, at his worst. Being there for the highs and the lows, it's a privilege. It's it's something I don't take for granted. Yeah. And then personally for me, I spent my 20s at the PBR. I grew up just as much as some of these other guys I covered. Sometimes it could be tough covering pro athletes if, look, they're the athlete, I'm the nerd. That's just how it is. Yeah. But this community is super welcoming to me, and I've shared beers with JB. I always laughed at, the first time I met JB Mooney, he looked at me and he's like, "Hey, you want a Jaeger bomb?" And I was like, "Oh, well, shoot, it's JB. I can't say no. I got this is a chance for me to kind of get to know the guy and build that trust factor in. We did a Jaeger bomb. Then we did another Jaeger bomb. And it's just, and I've never taken for granted the fact that in this community, there is an openness. People know that I am quote unquote media.
Yeah.
I do work for the league, so I'm not going to go out and blast these guys. I can't. I'm not going to, I can't say that, this is a bad thing or that's a bad thing. I know who pays my paychecks, and that's fine. But I've always doubled down on what's the best way to tell the athlete's story, because that's a privilege. I mean, that you're a storyteller. If there's not a trust factor there, they're not going to open their doors. And you can go through the door, but if they don't open their door, they're not going to open their hearts to you. And to me, that's what it's about. Like, I say a lot about winning, losing, because that's sports.
Yeah.
But it's also a lot more to it, right? It's the story, it's the person, it's the people, and that's a privilege.
Absolutely. No, absolutely. The privilege side of it, and then, you were also there for Mason Lowe.
Yep.
And talk a little bit about like the handling of the highs and, the the Jaeger bombs with JB, but but all the way down to the kind of the lows, and how, you have to be the mouthpiece of the voice that kind of shares that news with the public. Like, what is that like?
Oh,
How
it's
do you
the worst
handle
part
that
of the job.
responsibility?
It's look, anyone that comes from like journalism or media, anyone that works in sports, we always say, we play in the sandbox. Like, we're not covering, the 3 a.m. fire, the car crash, the police shooting, the death of a soldier. Like, those storytellers are next level. Mm-hmm. That is, I can't imagine knocking on a door and being like, hey, so your teenager died in a car crash. Let's talk about it. Like, that's awful. Yeah. I never wanted to be in that kind of news.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, sports is life, and there are moments that are not fun to cover, and certainly it's hard. When Mason passed, that was, I always say, it's the best story I wrote and the worst story I wrote. And I say that because, again, like, I spent countless amounts of days, nights with Mason. He was one of the first bull riders that my wife met in New York, and it was her birthday. And he bought her shots of whiskey, and she's like, I don't like whiskey. He's like, watch this, we're going to chill it. And so when he passed, that was, there's only been a handful of times in my career where I wrote a story and I cried afterwards. And that was one where I was there in Denver the night it happened. And I really struggled with how do you celebrate a guy's life so close to his passing. And I've always believed that, and whenever there is a tragedy in sports, it's important to, yes, acknowledge the news, but, I didn't want to just put a tweet out. I didn't put out a press release and call it good. I felt like it was important to tell a story of some sort. And I really struggled for, I live in Colorado Springs. It's about a hour or so drive from Denver Coliseum. And I drove that night home just trying to figure out what am I going to do. Like, how am I going to do this? I was sitting there at first trying to write, couldn't do there. I was like, I'm going to go home and just try to sit in my office and figure it out. And I kept going back to, this moment where I want to say maybe it was Springfield, Missouri. I forget where it was. I think it was Mason's birthday. I forget the story exactly. But it was basically Mason was sitting there, and I think Derek Kolbaba was maybe there, Jess Lockwood, JB was there, and, Mason just kept saying, that's a cowboy. That's what I want to be. And he was kind of poking Jess around. He's like, you're SpongeBob, and you're going to be world champ. Like, you're just Mason being Mason. And it's been a while since actually I've read that story, but that was kind of the way I wanted to open the story with, it was Mason just being Mason.
Yeah.
And the crazy thing about that whole situation to me is that I remembered that moment, but it's not like I was in that moment as a reporter. I wasn't there with a camera. I wasn't there recording anything. Yeah. But when he passed, I kept going back to that moment. And so I don't want to say the lesson, I guess, but what I take away from that was, as a storyteller, you're always actually fact-finding. You're always learning. Even if the camera's off, tape recorder's off, you never know in your life when you do something, participate in something, hang out with someone that may actually end up being a story later in life. And sadly for me, it was for Mason's passing. And that sucked. The whole thing, like, look, we know in this sport, in this industry, that it can happen. It's the elephant in the room. And we've been lucky in our sport many times. But it's a reality, and it's the worst part. If there's one thing I hate about this sport, it's that.
Yeah.
But every bull rider tells me, look, man, I can get hit by a car tomorrow, which is true.
Yeah.
But yeah, those lows are tough. They're really tough. And, I've sadly gone through a couple of those now at PBR with Mason and Amadeo. They're never easy. And I hope to God that I don't have to do many more of those, if ever again.
Yeah. No, thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
When you think about the storytelling side of it, just in general, and again, you're for the riders and the PBR, and I feel like a lot of the associations do a pretty good job of, trying to prop up the rider, or the cowboy, and trying to advance what's possible, right? From a marketing perspective and from a storytelling perspective, one of the things that we have talked about a lot with Tough Draw and with our company is like telling the story of these athletes and kind of opening the doorway for people to really know these people. Like, we did a piece a couple years ago before Sage won his 6th world title. And then we did a piece with Dalton not too long ago where we went out to New Caney and hung out with him and got a piece that I'm trying to get put together that we've been working on for a while with Blake Sharp about what he does with his bulls and kind of the crossover there. And he's been on the podcast. We're good friends with Cord McCoy. The more people I meet in this community, the more I'm entrenched and ingrained and like just fascinated. And I feel like as storytellers, there's so much there that can be talked about. That's not, and it's not. I'm not sitting here saying it's your fault or my fault. It's just this. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's the mentality. Maybe it's the humbleness of this community. But it's like there's something about and that's one of the things I think with the teams that you have the opportunity to do is learn some of the dynamics of like how Zeke Mitchell functions on the Gamblers, like what he brings to the table, but it's because of his personality,
right?
Or like, how does a guy like Jose elevate everybody around him, from his team sports background, or Eli Vastbinder, quiet, but yet calm and intense, and Cole Baba, like, there's just all the personalities. Like, as storytellers, how do you think we can, the sport, whether it's I'm not even relegating it just to PBR, but just in general with cowboys, with Western culture, with the athletes, whether it's ropers, bull riders, bronc riders, whatever.
Yeah.
How do you think we could do a better job telling these stories, or what do you think some opportunities will be to do something like that?
Yeah, it's a great question. And you're right. Me, you, not one person can do. There's just so much there to cover. I think part of it is, as a community, we have to invest more, and it's a problem across all of news and journalism and sports. There's not a lot of people that want to do this. It's not necessarily the easiest job. It's not the best pay for anyone. And I think you see. I mean, you hear. I have a lot of friends that used to work in local news. And they all left because they got burnt out and the salaries weren't good. And now there is this yearning in communities for local news. Like you said, there's so many untold stories, and that's anywhere in the U.S. right now. There's not many reporters out there, and a lot of people think the media's liars and they're evil and all of that. There is this belief that media is bad. Good media is good storytellers, and I think that gets lost. And I think going back to like rodeo and PBR, you've seen the PRCA, the PBR, they're investing in people to tell stories now. And they're also opening their doors. PBR is working on a couple team series, behind the scenes documentaries that are going to be awesome.
Yeah.
And the athletes are willing to open those doors. And that's huge, right? Yeah. And I think it's just up to big players. Teton Ridge is doing this well. They're doing great things too. Yeah. I think the more storytellers we get in the business, the better. And it's up to all of us to work together. Like some people say, oh man, Justin, like why would you help out these other, projects? You're giving them your stuff. I'm like, no. My job as a storyteller at PBR is I have an onion. I'm going to write a story. It's The Onion. Now you're going to look at this story and you're going to say, wow, that's a really cool nugget about Dalton Castle. I didn't know that. Yeah. You cut up that onion. Now you cook your own meal with that onion. That's my goal as storytellers. I want other storytellers to say, you know what? I like that story. I'm going to go deeper. And I'm not offended by that. Some people get offended like, oh, I broke that story and now they stole my work. Look, I've had plenty of guys that won awards off of stories I wrote about JB.
Yeah.
I didn't win the award, but it's whatever. It's just part of it. Like, to me, when Fearless came out on Netflix, I was pumped that they saw. There's nothing. One of the best compliments actually you can get is someone could say, "Hey, I read your story or I watched your video. That made me do this." Yeah. So
inspiring somebody.
Yeah, that's so. I think the more content creators we get, like everyone's doing social media right now. It's huge. We got TikTok, we got Instagram, we got Facebook, we got Reels. Not my cup of tea.
Yeah.
But even those social media platforms, they're telling stories now.
Yeah.
It's different. Like I just got done before I came over here, our social media team was working on a some kind of Instagram reel about Marcus Mast. And
I saw that, yeah.
And the text they were working on was off of a story I wrote about Marcus.
Yeah.
That's great. Perfect. Take my story, use it. So I think the more we do that as an industry, like, paying attention to what the athletes care about, it's opening that door of trust too. If Stetson Wright thinks I'm a piece of crap, he's probably not going to want to work. And that's fine if he does. I mean, I like Stats. I can say that. But, I think it's training our athletes to realize that, open yourselves up, tell your stories, be willing to be a personality. Like Zeke's great at that.
Yeah.
Sometimes the cowboy way is, your actions should speak louder than your words. And I'm just going to ride bulls, be a champion. Yeah. And the good storytellers will still push that quiet person to tell their story. And most of our guys, they're fantastic. Like, and rodeo's great. It's probably why I haven't left.
Yeah.
Because there's just so much opportunity here. And because it's a small community, you can spend time working on stuff. There isn't this pressure of, Adam Schefter's not scooping me on something tonight. Like, it's just me.
Yeah.
And every now and then there's a scoop. And I'm like, damn, oops, I guess I missed that one. But it's fine, though. Like, I'm not in the news breaking business. Like you said, we're storytellers. To me, that's important. Yeah. So I hope we see more. I hope we keep getting talented people in. I think it's fun that we're even seeing, kids that grow up rodeoing are now becoming content creators in the industry. They now see a pathway to cover the sport, be reporters, right? Like Kate Harrison's inspiring girls. Craig Hummer's been an inspiration.
Yeah.
We're seeing, look, Sage is doing commentary, right? Who thought that was ever going to happen? But he saw McBride do it. He saw J.W. Hart.
And I love hearing him break down a bull.
Yeah.
There's
so it's
just
fun.
something, there's an element to it. It's just, having people talk about it that can give you, it's the onion, right?
Yep.
Anybody can make a call, but it's like the depth and the detail, it's almost like Matt and Kate give you what they do. Yep. And then it's like, let's let Sage pull back the layers. And it's like, what happened in that ride? What are you seeing there that we don't?
Yeah. And again, it's like, you got your podcast, you got your docs you're working on. Matt West got his podcast. I mean, Cowboy Channel, RFC, they're doing great stuff too. Yep. I mean, you'd actually take a step back and you look at the last 5 to 10 years of Western sports coverage and storytelling. It's gotten a lot better because of a lot of great individuals. The athletes bought in, and I'm excited to see where it goes because again, like my friends back east, they always laugh like, wait. In the Cowboy Channel? What is that? What? I'm like, it's NFL Network. Yeah. And they're like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, like, that makes actually a lot of sense. Like, so I really do think this industry is making the right steps. But like I said with teams, we know the challenges. We know trying to get more money for everyone. The athletes, it's a challenge. And I think though, again, it's getting better across the board, and that includes storytelling.
Absolutely. And I feel confident that with people like you and like Matt and like us working and grinding and keeping going, like I feel confident that it'll just continue to get better and get stronger, and those 100%. Stories will get out there. Man, that was very insightful. Thank you for sharing that. And now what we typically do is we kind of kick it over to some fan questions.
Nice.
So we've had some submitted. Let me get them pulled up real quick because as of this morning there were still some being submitted. All right, so. Matt wants to know, who's your favorite announcer?
Who's my favorite announcer? Oh, man. No, I'm gonna pull Matt West.
Okay, I was about to say
I'm gonna be a Matt West myself. I am my favorite announcer.
There you go. Okay.
I'm just kidding. No,
Matt, there you go.
yeah. I mean, I would say this. I think my favorite announcer. Oh, so he wants to know like PBR announcer?
You can guess who the question came from.
Yeah, I know what Matt's doing.
It's loaded.
You know what? I'll just say this. Kate is better than Matt.
Oh.
And he's not going to like hearing that.
There we go.
They have a little rivalry going. It's fun,
though.
Matt's great, though. He's been fantastic. Again, I can't say enough good things about Matt. That's fun, though.
No, Matt's awesome. He did a great job early on in the podcast as I was just kind of getting going. So he's been awesome to kind of lean into. So, Santa Maria Bucking wants to know, have you ever thought about riding a bull?
I get this question a lot. I have. I used to always joke that if every rider ponied up $1,000 and there's a $35,000 offer on the table, I would get on, and then I would just take the shoe clock down to 0 and take my money and go home.
Oh, look at that. Playing the rules.
But then they probably wouldn't give me the money. So, no, I haven't actually put any serious thought into it. Again, I respect what these guys do. I know the risks, and it's just one of those things where, look, I'm an athlete, so I like to fancy myself as an athlete, but I'm not that kind of athlete. I'm not tough enough. I can't do it.
James and I used to talk about how once we get our first movie made, we'll get on. But we were like 21 and 22, 23 when we thought about this, and here I am, 35 years old, so that ain't happening.
Yeah.
So Katie wants to know, what's your favorite whoopah moment?
Favorite whoopah moment? My favorite whoopah moment, that would have to be, I will say it's when Jose run for the record, and not because it was the record, right? Everyone's saying, it's the greatest ride ever. Yeah, it was the greatest ride ever. But my favorite moment with that is it's the relationship between him, Jose, Larry, Katie, like all of them. There's this weird, and I say weird because, again, it's like, how do you explain this? But there is this weird relationship between animal and bull rider. And people think I'm crazy, but if you're in the Western world, you understand it.
Yeah.
Jose talks to Whoopah, Whoopah talks to Jose, and at the finals, Jose wasn't supposed to ride that bull. Like, I was in sports med with him, and he was basically almost in tears with how much pain he was in because of his torn right groin. He had just clinched the world title. I'm like, okay, he's good. He's not, doctor out of the champs round. And he stands up and he's like, no, I need to finish the job. I'm like, what? You gotta finish the job? He's like, I need to go win the finals. I'm like, dude, you can barely walk right now. you were just asking me almost in tears, could Pacheco catch you? So I figured you're good. And he just like, this light bulb went off. So then he gets on Whoopah, and you got Larry looking at Jose on the back of the chute saying, hey, let's go break the record. And I'm like, no. There's no effing way this is going to happen. And you got Whoopah, and his ears are twitching. It's like, looks like he's just chilling, and they broke the record.
That's crazy.
That's my favorite moment because, again, that bull is truly special. But what's really special about it is a relationship between Lemmy and Whoopah. It's very similar to JB and Bushwhacker. Now, the success rate's a lot different, but Bushwhacker knew when JB was getting on him. I believe that. Yeah. And I think Whoopah knows when Lemmy's getting on him.
That's very cool. Yeah, so my favorite Whoopah moment, just to share, because this is kind of cool. So we were in Cheyenne interviewing people for the doc, and we interviewed Boudreaux. Boudreaux sat down with us, and I knew he had drawn Whoopah that night. And I was like, you think you can get him rode? And he goes, I'm going 95 on him.
Yep.
That's exactly what he said. He said, I'm going 95 on him. And danged if he didn't go 95 and a quarter or 95 and a half, and it just called his shot. Like that was something. Yeah. Like he came out of the dirt. We were standing right there because we were shooting it, and he came out of the dirt, and he kind of looked at me, and I was like, "You did it." Yeah. And he was like, he kind of pounded his chest and kept walking. That was awesome.
Yeah.
There's been some huge moments like that, and doing the documentary, hearing about Lane and Red Rock and JB and Bushwhacker, like you're alluding to, there's just something special about those types of matchups.
It's pretty simple to me again, and I hate to say that I'm an outsider because I'm part of this community now. I've been here 10 years.
In your title, you're insider.
Yeah, right.
You're insider.
But I come from an outside world, and I always tell everyone it's David versus Goliath.
Yeah.
Like, that's what really everyone understands. They look at it, they watch it. You know nothing about this sport. You see tiny human, massive animal. It's the story that we're all taught as kids. It's David versus Goliath. And you want to root for the underdog. Well, sometimes you want to root for Goliath, I guess, because the Bulls are pretty popular. But you get my point. I think there is something to it, and it's simple. It's David versus Goliath, and that is a story that everyone wants to watch.
So somebody asked, Thomas asked, what are your thoughts just in general on Jose already wrapping up the MVP?
I
don't know if he's alluding to that in
Yeah.
a negative connotation,
No,
that
no,
it's
I
already
get
wrapped
it. No,
up, or more of amazement because he's been riding.
I mean, because I'm a sports guy, I kind of wish the MVP was decided after the season. I also kind of wish it wasn't based on just pure numbers, and I'm a numbers guy.
Yeah.
But I say that for two reasons. One, I think I don't think Dalen Swearingen's the MVP. Not because he's not the best rider in Carolina, but that team has so many good riders that I think Dalen could sit out and that team could still have success maybe. They wouldn't be as good. But you take away Lemmy, until they got Castle, they were completely garbage without Lemmy. And that's no disrespect to those guys, but that's just a fact.
Man, I didn't know we could throw out hot takes.
But
I thought the Rattlers were garbage to start the season.
Exactly. And that's the fun thing about sports.
But then that came back and it won so many, made me look stupid.
Yeah, but like I've told a couple people now, I actually had Derek Kolbaba as the MVP. If I was like a media guy voting, because that team has had so much happen to them. Much things that are even beyond bull riding. But he's been the guy that's tried to carry that team, and he's done a really great job of it. I think him and Lemmy are probably the two guys you can make the argument if we're voting for MVP, who do you vote for? But I will say, going back to Swearingen, he's had a very, very special year. And there's a couple downsides of teams, obviously, but one downside of teams is we didn't celebrate what he did good enough.
I know. Yeah.
His comeback he beat Jose. Like, that's
he did.
Freaking
and
hard
because
to do.
Even if Jose, like I know Jose got hurt at the finals, but I mean, Dalen was in such a position, he kept riding like he still was riding. So
yeah, he truly did something special, and he's been just dominating in teams. So again, I think you can make the argument maybe he should be the MVP. Now I'm talking myself into a corner, and that's the fun thing about sports, right?
Bar talk.
Yeah, bar
right?
talk. That's what we want. That's what I want for Western sports. I want that bar talk, and that's fun. So the MVP thing, I hope as teams grows, I hope we get to a point where we have like a comeback rider of the year. I know we're doing the Yeti favorite fan vote. I want to do like a money bowl, the bowl that helps the team win the most.
Yeah.
There's a lot of fun things we can do with it, but Jose, he is the MVP. All things considered, take away the 19 rides that he had. I mean, the guy's a leader, man. Just
19
observing,
out of like, what, 22, 23?
And
like
just
something ridiculous.
You can take away all his awesome stats. Just watching him as a leader of men in that locker room, that has been fun to see. He hates losing. And seeing him lose this year and knowing he did his job and it wasn't good enough, it's been a challenge for him. It's been fun for me to see, and he's elevating that entire team. He's the MVP, there's no doubt. But if I was voting, I would strongly have considered Kolbaba.
Yeah. So it's interesting you bring him up. So Kolbaba, and this wasn't asked, but just side tangent.
That's
nerd
our
out
podcast
with
where you gotta
here.
go tangents a little
just
bit.
Side tangent. What is it? What do you think it is about the fact that he's been able to put it together? Because he's always kind of been the Dragon Slayer, but consistency has always been an issue for him, I feel like.
He's on a heater right now. Now the question is...
Do you think it's a heater?
Do
you think he's found
right?
something, right?
I think it's two things. One, I think having his first child has been, I think it's like a focus thing. I think now there's... Not that he wasn't focused. He's always been a really focused guy, but I think that... And I don't have kids yet. I'm not sure
changes.
if we will. That's what everyone says.
Everything.
It changes you. So I think that's part of it. I think also... I think Cody Lostro has been a very, very huge asset for Kolbaba. Okay. I think he's been working on his sports psychology, and I mean it's not a fluke. He's had 4 or 5 walk-off rides. I forget what the numbers are now, but like
it's pretty insane.
He has been dialed in, and I think Kolbaba approached the team series as a way to prepare himself to win a world title, because he keeps telling me, "I'm pumped to help my team win," but these are the moments that I failed at in 2017. Because I asked him actually in Glendale, it's like, hey, do you think you're riding better now than when you were number 1 in the world? He's like, yes, I'm finishing now. He's like, I didn't finish in 2017. He's like, if I would have made these rides in 2017, I'm a world champion.
Yeah.
And that's the first time in my career that Cole Baba's come out and actually said that. So I think something's changed. And I want to say maybe it's Cody Lostro, the sports psych, just having people believe in you.
The kid thing is a big deal. I mean, I know, in 2021 with Eli at the finals, right? I've watched, James and I have watched Eli in the PRCA and different things and big moments. And he steps up in big moments, but like what he did injured as bad as he was. I mean, the only way you can explain that is he was riding for something way more than himself.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of what ends up happening,
I think so too.
But yeah, I mean, I agree with you 100%. I think somebody like Cole Baba, I would have loved to see Daniel keeping the whole year. Just to see.
Yeah, right. That'd be interesting too. I mean, then that's the fun thing. Like the MVP, like I hope that there's fans out there saying that, you know what, I think actually Dalen was more important than Jose, and that's the thing. The MVP was good though the way we did it because it still values the individual aggregate, and that's important in rodeo and bull riding.
Absolutely.
And I think that's an important accomplishment. So I'm glad we gave it that limelight. But yeah, I think it's fun to think about. Maybe someone else like
it's like the NFL having MVP and the offensive player of the year and stuff like that, right? Like at some point, that's a possibility of like, yes, the MVP is a points race, but there is a subjective view that we want to look at of like who really was the most, who played the biggest role, even if they didn't accrue the biggest points. Like Daniel Keeping for the Rattlers, the way he turned that around for him, like,
right.
I mean, they're not
sitting. Marcus Mast turned around. There's a couple guys that you're like,
yeah. I mean, there's some of those stories and those guys that just stepped up. Casey Roberts was big for a while for the Freedom
then
too.
You think, okay, coach, is there a coach of the year at some point? Who is the best coach?
Cord McCoy.
Hey, I'll tell you what. That's
personal bias. I'm sorry.
I'll tell you what. The coaching job that Cord McCoy and Lostro did, it's been really good. Yeah. And that's something that I think gets lost in all of this because we're still kind of an individual-focused sport. These coaches make a difference, good and bad. And I think Cord's knowledge of the Bulls has helped his team, and same with Lostro. And I joked on another interview, I said that they're kind of like good cop, bad cop. And Lostro said he's good cop. I'm like, yeah, BS. I've never seen Cord get angry once in my life. So I feel like they're the perfect blend. And that team, look, they're not the best team on paper. They finished, I think, the 3 seed.
Yeah.
I mean, they're not riding as good as a lot of other teams. They have a tough matchup with Nashville.
Scores a lot of points, but they don't win.
But Cord's done something with that team. That team has still found ways to win. That's what good coaches do. So he would get votes for sure.
Yeah.
In our make-believe ballot that we're not making.
Yeah, exactly. Well, let's make one. Let's just make one. Right. We'll tweet that out. Who would be coach of the year? Now, you alluded to something just now, and this we'll take this as kind of the last question, but sports psychology.
Yeah.
What, long time ago when James and I kind of started in this, we heard about sports psychology in some instances, and this was before mental health was such a big deal, right? And so it's not that it was viewed as a negative, but it was just kind of like, well, that person has to call the sports psychologist because he can't do it himself, whatever. But now I know it's much more prevalent. Can you talk a little bit about sports psychology and kind of what you know about it?
Yeah.
And, you don't have to name names of guys that do or don't use it, but just the sense of like what it provides to these guys and how prevalent is it becoming?
It's not prevalent enough, I think. And you can say the same thing about mental health counseling in the U.S. We're not doing enough to make it okay. I mean, I think I look at it this way. Athletes are the most egotistical, cocky, tough, right? An athlete is just, very rarely does an athlete ask for help. And one of the biggest problems in the U.S. is mental health. And a lot of times people don't even understand it's okay to go see a therapist or go get counseling. And by no means am I an expert. I don't know nearly enough about psychology or mental health. I'm an advocate for it. I believe in it. Yeah. I think it's a good thing. I think we need to do more to help kids, especially in this technology era, learn how to handle the ups and downs of life. I think all of us can point to points in our lives where we were depressed. We just didn't know what to call it. But on the sports side, there's a lot of pressure on these guys. And I think sports psychology could be a really good thing for rodeo, especially if you take away the team aspect of it. You have no one to talk to. You have your traveling buddies, but I mean, if you're in the truck, yeah, you can probably talk about what you're going through. But I think there's even a larger need for sports psychology in an individual sport because you are competing for yourself and your family. And in our sport and rodeo as well, if you don't ride, your family doesn't get income.
Yeah,
that's a lot of pressure. So I do know some guys that have worked with sports psychologists. I know some teams have offered that resource to the riders. I think we're seeing the benefits of it. But I do believe that across the board, I hope that becomes a bigger thing in Western sports. There's a lot of resources there. I know with the Western Sports Foundation, that's been a big initiative of theirs. I know Dr. Tandy Freeman knows people. I know that there are people that can answer that question for the athletes.
For sure.
Because again, I'm not an expert. You're not an expert. And if we're in the truck with our buddy and he starts, talking about some stuff and we don't know what the right thing to say, doesn't mean that we're bad friends, and it's not, go talk to a professional. I think that's important. I think all of us can benefit from it. I've got plenty of friends that have therapy sessions and they say it's changed their life. Yeah. And I've personally never gone down that path. It doesn't say I wouldn't consider it if I needed someone to talk to because, life's hard.
Yeah.
Being an athlete's really hard, but just living a life can be challenging across the board. So I think it's a good thing. And I do believe that my gut instinct is that within the next 10, 15, 20 years, we may start seeing okay, this team just hired this as their mental health coach. That may be a more kind of prominent, sexy role that's kind of publicized in all of sports.
Yeah. No, I mean, and it kind of goes back to the team element of it too.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a lot more accepted and easy, to in a team dynamic to be able to kind of face some of those challenges together. But then at the same time, there is the single individual side of it.
Yep.
And, alluding back to what James and I talked about us hearing about it several years ago, it was just an individual deal. It was more of just a single one-off. This guy, he needs it or whatever, and he uses it all the time and all this stuff. So anyway, I thought that would be interesting to kind of get your take on it and see.
No, I love it, man. That's the kind of stuff that, again, talk about, PBR team series, the growth of the community, stuff like that's important. And I think a lot of times we get caught up in increasing the prize money and doing this, and that's always going to be important. But there's other things as a sport that we can do, and that's one of them that we can improve.
Yeah. So I know I said that was the last, but
Keep
one
going,
last
it's all
thing.
good.
One last thing. So overall, do you view, again, knowing that there's things that have to be worked on, do you view the first season so far as a big success for the teams? Or do you think that there's still challenges it faces moving forward?
I mean, both. There's still plenty of challenges. There's things that I think we failed at for sure. But I will say there's been a lot of success. And I was skeptical at first. A lot of people at PBR were like, okay, Sean, yeah, we're going to do this. Okay. But he was a bulldog. He really believed in it. And when you have passion for something, and he just got done giving the speech, you have to believe things. If you're passionate, you have to believe it or else it won't succeed. And he believes in it. I personally have had some moments this year where I was like, holy crap. When Kansas City booed Nashville, the fans was like, whoa, finally, we got something.
We got some.
Pacheco was kind of like, what?
It ain't quite Philly. They ain't throwing batteries yet.
And then in Austin, when Jose was getting ready to have his walk-off ride, they started a Let's Go Gamblers chant. And I was like, whoa, that's pretty cool. And then in Nashville with Silvano. So you're seeing some of these fan base get it. I hope we get to a point where I want people booing. Yeah. And that's against the cowboy culture. And I'm not trying to offend anyone, but I want hostile environments.
You want the fandom.
Yeah.
You want
I don't want
home field advantage.
I don't want PBR teams to be golf.
Yeah.
I want fans that have passion to yell, to scream. Respectfully, don't insult anyone's family. I think there's a lot of awesome stuff coming with teams. Now we just build off of it. We correct the mistakes, make it better. Hopefully fans enjoyed it. Yeah. And I think they're starting to understand it, and that's a good thing.
Awesome. Justin, this was a blast, dude. I really enjoyed this. Is there anything else you'd like to say to the fans of the sport or people that kind of follow along with your coverage and different things like that?
Sure. First off, thank you. I don't have a job if people don't read what I do or listen to what I say. I'm always open to ideas. Hit me up on social media. I'm not as active as, say, the Matt West or the Cates because I'm always so focused on not being the story. I'm really bad at making myself accessible, but I am. I want people to say hello at events or hit me a message on social media. Tell me I'm stupid. Tell me I'm smart. Tell me I'm pretty. I'm married, so I'm off limits. It's all good. But it's a hard job, and you mentioned compliments. I think it's great to hear from fans. So thank you, fans, because again, like, no one's reading my stuff, and if we're not talking about this, we got no jobs, and so the fans are what it's about. And I have a special spot in my heart for the core fans because you always hear, right, grow the sport. New fans. I like the core fans.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Where you mentioned social media, where kind of give people a rundown of where they can find your work and follow along with you.
Sure. You can find all my work I'm big on Twitter. My handle is Felisko, my name. I do have an Instagram account that I look at. I don't post nearly enough. Need to work on that. But that's Felisko60. That was my football number, actually. When I was an offensive lineman. Yep,
there you go.
Oh, yeah. Big timer. But yeah, my email's jfelisko@pbr.com. Send me an email, say hello. I'm pretty... Again,
most of your stuff they can find on pbr.com, correct?
Yeah, exactly.
That's probably the best place to find the full articles.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, again, I can't thank you enough for coming down. I'm glad we were able to make this work. And again, the timing was a blessing. I think it was great to be able to be reflective and talk through all these things that have happened. And again, thank you to our sponsor for today, Cavender's Western Wear. Follow along with us on social media at Tough Draw and at Tough Draw Talks for more episodes of our podcast as we continue to bring you closer to the rodeo community like never before. Until next time, everyone, enjoy the ride.